Good morning, campers. Welcome to Radio Camp Apple, a Percy Jackson Reeling podcast. I'm your host, Zach.
And I'm B.
And this week, we read the final chapter of Percy Jackson in the Battle of the Labyrinth. My birthday takes a dark turn. Ooh.
We both made different noises.
Oh, did we? Oh, man.
Yeah, you went ooh and I went dun dun dun, but it's the same motion that we're getting
Well,
across.
yeah, it's a dark turn, but also same brain. We're so far away, but yet we're connected by brain.
Yeah. We're like brothers, but close.
Oh, no. Kill me. So, B, what did you think of this very depressing, well, I guess not depressing, the awkward birthday party ever?
Yeah, it's kind of, it's weird. I feel like as far as final chapters go, this is one of the,
anticlimactic ones, where it just
yeah,
goes
it's like
poosh.
anticlimactic. And it sort of ends on a cliffhanger, but not like that much of a cliffhanger. Like there's not an imminent threat or anything, or it's, I don't know, the stakes don't feel super raised. There's just sort of like, well, we'll get into it, I guess.
It kind of reminds me of, this is going to be a weird analogy, but how a lot of the episodes of Buffy would end with like big episodes, and then they would just kind of peter out and just have something that's like, well, here's the big twist, but we're not going to talk about it until next book.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I haven't really watched a lot of Buffy, but it felt weird the way that it ended, because it felt like it was the kind of cliffhanger you would put on the end of a chapter, not necessarily the end of a book.
I think the best way to explain this, B, is in Game of Thrones, when the show was still going on, don't ask me about the ending, but how they would structure the seasons was the penultimate episode would have like a super crazy big battle, and then the last episode of that season would be more talking. Like they blew their budget in the big battle, and this is more of everyone not saying their goodbyes, but they're just getting the rest of the plot along to finish up the book. And it's kind of like this, too.
I mean, that was sort of the last chapter, though. There was, like, a lot more reckoning with the big battle and everything last chapter. Well, this is sort of like, it feels like a coda or something. It's not quite an ending.
It feels like an epilogue. I wish they would have just called this an epilogue.
Yeah, like an epilogue. That's a lot of what it feels like. Because it's not, there's something weird about the tone, where it's not like, oh, and then tune in next book. I don't know, like I felt like there should have been another chapter after this, because he's sort of starting a conversation with Nico. I mean, we're going to kind of get into the bullet points.
I think the best way to put this is a lot like Half-Blood Prince going into Deathly Hallows. Like the ending of that book is very similar to that, where it's like, well, we have this plan now, but you have to wait till next book for us to execute it and have to talk about it.
Yeah, I guess so. It's kind of interesting, because I feel like a lot of the books that we've read so far in this series have ended on a more intense
crazy note,
I guess. Yeah, something like the stakes feel escalated and they're more overtly threatening, while this is sort of like, oh, we're looking forward to what's going to happen in the next book.
What did you want, like Kronos like knock at the door and it comes to the birthday party? Ooh, I brought a casserole.
Not maybe that level, but maybe something a little bit more imminently threatening. I guess we do see Nico, which sort of makes us think about what's happening next, and we hear a little bit about...
We also see Poseidon.
Yeah, though, again, those are like friendly characters. I guess I'm so used to the books ending with some sort of antagonist making even like a brief appearance.
Well, in the first book, obviously, we find out that Luke has turned, and also Percy Jackson's recovering. Sea of Monsters, we find out that Thalia is alive. And I think that out of all of them, that is probably the best out of all of them.
That's such a big thing to tackle that, of course, it would be in the next book. It's just sort of funny that, like, this chapter ends with him with Nico being like, and so anyway, I have a plan.
Fade to black. ...
And then it just ends. Like, it's sort of like the ending of The Sopranos or something, where it's just like, do you know what I mean?
Oh, God, that reminds me of in Modern Warfare 2. This is going back, actually, 10 years ago. I had this feeling where they did something like that, where you play as a character who gets horribly injured, and like he's bleeding out, and you just hear like it starts to fade out, and it says, "Don't worry, I know a place," and then the game ends, and you don't know what the heck's happening until the next game, and it drove me nuts.
Yeah, exactly. It just feels like it's just like setting up like not even that intense of a scene. It's like not at a fever pitch, it's just sort of like at a medium pitch, and then it ends, which is like a weird tone to strike. I don't know.
See, I don't hate this chapter because it feels like this is the most normal Percy gets to feel. Like when you're at your birthday party, this is where you're the most relaxed, where you're the most vulnerable. You'd expect something big to happen, but I think that's not kind of the point of the chapter. Is probably this is the last time Percy Jackson gets to celebrate his birthday in peace before something terrible happens.
We talked about his birthday last episode, and I think did we think that he was turning 16 already, or is that a confusion on my part?
He's turning 15. Yeah, we got a correction about this. It's not explicit because I always think of it like Harry Potter. Each book is just a different year. He's already that many
Yeah, but
years.
it's kind of spaced out differently than that because then there's
Well, yeah, because I got really weirded out by this because I forgot that the winter isn't the summer, so they didn't get an extra bead. Like, wait, shouldn't there be 4 beads? Like, no, it's 3 because there's only been 3 summers.
Yeah, exactly. Because which one didn't count?
Titan's Curse.
Titan's Curse didn't count as a bead. Yeah, that's like a confusing, weird little thing because it's not like a summer, so it's not. It's sort of like we often structure these kinds of books in like school years or
by year,
camp year, whatever. Like Harry Potter is like, oh, each book is a time that he has spent, like he spent exactly a year at Hogwarts or whatever. Like that kind of structure is really easy to follow. But Percy Jackson doesn't exactly follow that. Usually it does, but then there's like that one thrown in that kind of is confusing. So I think that's what threw us off probably with the timing.
Knowing the way the structure is, it's going to be Percy Jackson turns 16 on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th minute.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is the penultimate book. We're going into the final book. Well, not next episode, but the next time we go back to this series. So, I mean, yeah, he's going to turn 16 at the end of that book, I guess, because his birthday is at the end of every summer.
Yes, it's going to be like 16 candles. Percy Jackson's going to be in the windowsill, and Annabeth's going to give him a cake.
Gonna show up with a cake?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Is that the one with the really racist caricature?
Oh, yeah, Long Duck Dong.
Long Duck Dong?
Yeah, that
God,
one's the
that's
one.
so bad. It does not age. It aged like milk.
I don't know. I got a couple chuckles the last time I watched it. I got to see it in the theater with a bunch of moms. It wasn't as funny as when I saw The Breakfast Club. That movie holds up.
No, The Breakfast Club is still good. I think it's because it's so self-contained, you know? It doesn't really try to branch out into other societal things that are kind of like messed up, like misogyny and racism is real bad in some of those.
Yes, yeah. And it's also, I like John Hughes. John Hughes wrote a lot of great movies. That was like really distracted watching that movie because both John and Joan Cusack are in that movie. And it's just, it gets really distracting.
Wait, do they play siblings in that?
No, Joan Cusack, she wears like that neck brace thing. She tries to drink out of the water fountain.
Oh, right. So they're just like characters.
They're just
That's
characters.
even weirder.
And this, I think the last time I saw was right after she was Justice Strauss. So it was like really distracting.
The full range of a career right there.
Yes, but so this chapter opens up and the summer's kind of normal. 2 months go by. It's like, almost like a fade to black, and then a title comes in 2 months later.
Yeah, they kind of like skip through a lot of the rest of the summer because it's kind of weird. Like the timing of the battle is like midsummer, so they have a good amount of the summer left before they have to go back home, and they're just kind of like awkwardly reckoning with the Battle of the Labrinth. Like they kind of don't really talk about it, but everyone kind of avoids certain parts of camp, like Zeus's fist.
It's like the bad splotch on the wall, like everyone notices it, but they're too polite to say anything about it.
Yeah, it's just sort of a weird description. I mean, even that's what Percy says. He says, the rest of the summer seems strange because it was so normal. The daily activities continued: archery, rock climbing, Pegasus riding. We played capture the flag, though we all avoided Zeus's fist. We sang at the campfire and raced chariots and played practical jokes on the other cabins. I spent a lot of time with Tyson playing with Mrs. O'Leary, but she would still howl at night when she got lonely for her old master. Annabeth and I pretty much skirted around each other. I was glad to be with her, but it also kind of hurt, and it hurt when I wasn't with her too. Yeesh.
Oh man, I know that feeling. I know that feeling like the back of my hand where you have the lover's blues.
The lovers. God, I hate that word.
Oh, I know. I forgot you hate the word lovers, but you get
the worst word.
Oh wait, okay. What is worst, lovers or moist?
If you combine them, that's the worst phrase in the human language.
Oh, okay. So are they moist lovers?
Yeah, no, I hate it. Put it in the trash.
Moving forward, I like this, that Percy Jackson is kind of understanding. Oh yeah, I like Annabeth, but also she can be a little insufferable at times, especially she's just been so engrossed.
Oh God, this chapter. I just can't. I can't give a crap about Annabeth, honestly. I know that this is maybe like a little bit mean of me or something, but I just don't care. Like, she's had so long to reckon with the fact that Luke is evil. Yes, now he's Kronos, so it's kind of more inextricable, and they realize, oh, if we have to kill Kronos, then we have to kill Luke, and it's a lot more complicated. But guess what, buddy? He's been evil for several books. He's been insufferable for several books. I don't care if you want a redemption arc or if you have this certain idea about him. I kind of just don't feel that bad for her. Like, she's still holding on to this former idea of who Luke was, and not the Luke he is now based on the actions that he's since inflicted on them over and over and over again. I mean, it feels like an abusive dynamic that she has with Luke, and it just is especially gross in context of Percy, who's like one of her closest friends, and she alienates him because of her love of this guy who hasn't shown any reason to be loved for a very long time. And it's just like really frustrating.
It also falters back to basically her fatal flaw, which is she has hubris, where she believes she knows what's right for the world.
Right. That she could like fix him possibly, or I don't know. She has some sort of chip on her shoulder.
She has battered housewife syndrome, where she'll always keep crawling back to him.
Yeah, which is weird because, like, to some extent, Luke has encouraged that in their dynamic because he kind of manipulated the sense of, I don't know, the sense of loyalty she had towards him by back in a few books ago when she was tricked into holding the weight of the world for a hot minute there. Remember when that happened?
I remember.
But, like, I just feel like even Luke hasn't really engaged with Annabeth in a meaningful way. Like, it's not like they've talked that much or had like a really like touching sort of conversation where he tried to say, oh, well, I still care about you, whatever. Like, he's been focused on this evil plot with Kronos for years now, and she's just still focused on this idea of who he was, and it's just really not healthy.
See, for a character arc perspective, I would make more sense if Luke did something like not selfless, but you have a sense that maybe he could be good. Like, he does something. I guess maybe the point is that every time that they've all been captured, he's like, oh no, I'm going to keep Annabeth. I'm going to protect her. Like, that weird type of thing. But even then, there isn't like a moment where you think that he kind of like wavers on sides. He pretty much is evil and then becomes super Hitler evil. There isn't like an in-between.
He's just been pretty evil for a while. You know what I mean? Like, Yeah,
I know. There isn't a thing like, you know, Luke like kind of like wavers in like his evilness and kind of does something good for them. Or you see something like when he doesn't have to put on this face, you see him like vulnerable for a chance, which we never get to see. And his problem with like this character
not really.
arc.
His vulnerability is like him being snivelly and like sucking up to Kronos or something. Like, that's his like level of vulnerability, is just being not as strong as Kronos or something. But like, as far as being emotionally available or like talking about his issues, I mean, even the most emotionally vulnerable he was in this series was when he talked to Percy back in the first book, when he talks about all of his problems with the gods and everything. Now his, like, ideological stuff doesn't even seem to matter as much as his, like, myopic idea of, like, starting this war.
Well, no, I think his most vulnerable is when he's holding up the heavens, and that might be genuine when he's begging Annabeth to take it, even though he knows what's going to happen. He knows that Annabeth is going to do it.
But, like, that's not even vulnerable. That's him being manipulative. That's, like, his least vulnerable. That's him being, like, hey, please help me. I promise I won't backstab you. And then she does take the weight of the world from him. And then he's like, haha, tricked you, basically. Like, that's him. He was playing a trick on her. Like, that's not vulnerable. That's, you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I think when it comes to like the gold standard of redemption arcs, I always like to use Zuko from The Last Airbender, because I think his redemption arc is probably the best. Because you see him kind of like wavering, you see like him being super idealistic, like, oh, I gotta get the Avatar, then my dad will accept me. To rather like, the only acceptance, the only honor that I need to reclaim is the honor for myself. And you see that throughout the series of him tackling this. There's actually a really great episode, Tales from Ba Sing Se, where he goes on a date and he does not know what to do with himself. And it's such a great little episode about this. But when it comes to Luke, it's hard, but it comes to like the redemption arc, because you have to earn it. Luke is not earning it. There isn't parts where like he has like he doesn't stall. He's like very like stalwart when it comes to like his belief system.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, there's no like crisis of faith you see in him where he's like, am I doing the right thing? Whatever. Maybe there is, but the problem.
Well, we're getting it from one perspective.
A character like him, and exactly, I was just about to say, the perspective we're getting is Percy's retrospective understanding of what happened. We don't get into the mind of anyone but Percy. So we don't see anything that doesn't happen in front of him unless there's like some dream sequence stuff that like kind of takes him to places he wouldn't otherwise. But as far as internally, he doesn't like hear the internal monologue of Luke at all, and we don't. So we don't really get any sort of sympathy.
See, this is where like the dream sequence stuff, like if Percy was to see Luke like either like breaking down emotionally or like you see him like wavering, like when he's alone by himself, he doesn't have to put on a face for Percy and Annabeth, that would probably be better to switch the opinions. But because we have none of that, we don't have, I think Game of Thrones, once again, I'm going to use Game of Thrones as an example, there are characters that you absolutely hate until you get into their POV with those chapters where you have Jaime or you have a Cersei.
You kind of see their motivations. Even if they're still evil, even if they're doing something horrible, you can kind of see.
It goes from like, I hate them to I love to hate them. There's a much different perspective of it.
Maybe you hate them, but you understand their perspective or you feel sorry for them. I don't even really feel sorry for Luke because his motivations, let's be completely clear about this, his motivations are identical to everyone else's experience as a half-blood. He tries to convince Percy in the first book to go to his side because all half-bloods to some extent feel like this. They feel like they've been dealt
alienated,
the worst hand by their godly parents. They haven't been claimed or they have been claimed and they've been sent on these horrible missions. They live a life of danger and they don't ever feel like they're being looked after in a way that's fair. They are subject to the fallible whims of these gods that have these ridiculous, overwhelming powers. I understand the Luke of the first book. I don't understand the subsequent Luke, the Luke that continues to be so steadfast in this, like, really, I mean, like, radicalized belief about, you know, starting this war against his own father, against all these innocent people. Like, that's obviously, it's a few steps beyond where he started.
It's funny because as we're saying this, I'm thinking about like there are characters. I'm gonna use Game of Thrones again, like Jaime Lannister. In the beginning of the series, like he is pretty much known as someone that's already killed the king. He sleeps with his sister. I'm not spoiling anything, and he throws a kid out of a window. By the end of not the series, not the TV show, but the books, I think he's one of the most honorable men in all of Game of Thrones. And that's saying a lot. And you don't see that with like Luke, where you don't see that wavering opinion. You don't see like that crisis of faith.
Yeah, you don't see any questioning. And maybe there is, like, you could get that sense sort of, and you've seen, I mean, sometimes in certain dream sequences that Percy has, you see maybe the weakness of Luke. You can see how he's struggling or he looks ill or that there's something wrong. You know, he's sort of browbeaten by Kronos and there is sort of weird sort of interpolitical stuff going on with him and his side. I understand that, but as far as like any kind of sense that he feels remorse for what he does or how he hurts other people,
there's no remorse, and that's the problem. Is that he's got zero remorse, and that's the problem. And that's kind of the hardest thing, like tackling going back to Annabeth and like wavering it back into this chapter is that we understand like Annabeth is like this. It's weird because she's supposed to be the smartest character. She's supposed to be the most confident, but yet she's the most broken out of everybody. Like she has like this weird falter that.
Yeah. Well, it's the trauma.
Well, it might be the trauma for one, but that doesn't excuse her for keep like going back to him. Saying it's a trauma for one thing doesn't excuse another type.
No, I mean it's not necessarily an excuse. I do think that that's probably the understanding of why she does that, even if it's not a justification. Like, frankly, the reason she feels such a connection to Luke is because he protected her when she was very vulnerable, when she felt like she didn't have anybody to take care of her as a half-blood and whatever. And Talia, too. And they have, like, this trauma bonding thing, and that's why they kind of have a complicated relationship.
Well, same as with Thalia. And you know what Thalia did? She kicked him off a cliff. Like, you got to realize at that point...
I have to shout out Thalia for doing that. That's a really... What a real G that one is. Just taking one for the team.
You gotta think about it this way. Thalia also protected Annabeth. And you know what? She kicked Luke off the cliff. And at that point, I think Annabeth should have been like, okay, like, I think I'm going to waver towards the Thalia side rather than the Luke side because his body's all crumpled.
Right. I mean, there's also like the romantic love aspect, which I mean is pretty. We're gonna kind of get into the prophecy in this chapter, which is like, I don't know, it's sort of like the blindness of romantic love that like when you feel for someone that way, it's really easy to look past all of their flaws. In the case of Luke, it's his entire personality is a flaw, friends.
This is where I start scratching my head until I reach bare bone, is that now we know that this is being set up to be a tragedy, a love tragedy, like Romeo and Juliet. Like, it's like, it's weird. It's like
Star-crossed
how people
lovers.
complain about like Kylo Ren and Rey, which is another thing I have a problem with. But it's very, very similar to that.
It's
like,
similar, yeah.
they're both terrible people and they have no chemistry, but because the author wants to have a tragedy.
Yeah, you would think, I mean, just objectively, like, think for a second, if Annabeth met someone like Luke and didn't have all that history, she would hate Luke because he's a jerk and self-important, and she's a very self-assured, intelligent woman who knows what she wants to do, she knows what she believes in, and then this guy, I mean, some guy who's nothing, he's a meaningless little twerp, is like having her second guess herself and feel horrible. It's like there's a million other teenage dudes who you could freaking go on a date with, and they're not going to be an evil titan who wants to destroy the world. Like, what a low freaking bar. Like, seriously, you could. It just doesn't make any sense to me. You know what I mean?
It feels like something that should have been resolved the third book or at the end of this book, where she comes to terms with like, oh, Luke's like irredeemable. It's like it's weird because you think of it this way. We're probably gonna move forward after this, but it's almost like if Luke were to like line people up and Annabeth was there and she saw him like chopping kids' heads off, she'd still be, that's fine. That's totally right. Luke is still gonna be a good person.
She'd be like, oh, that's Luke for you.
Luke. Classic Luke.
Yeah, exactly.
As he's like murdering children, like there's no redemption for it. Like you realize that he's already like the Lord of Evilness at this point. Like anyone, even like with our listeners, let's propose this question. If Annabeth was sitting right next to Luke and Luke is killing kids, is it still justified? Because kids technically did die. True, Luke didn't do it, but you would think that he still played a part in causing this. He enabled it. He's the first person to cause all these problems. And yet Annabeth has this fault, and I know we still haven't read the last book, so we don't know the full story if there's any more to it. But here's the thing, though. Luke's still terrible. There is no like remorse, and obviously he's gonna like repent on his deathbed. This is what it feels like. So it's gonna be like, oh, he was the hero all along. It wasn't Percy Jackson, it was Luke.
All right, I think we are going to move beyond this, but what the final thing I wanted to say was that I think what bothers me the most about this whole weird, like, cagey Annabeth and Luke thing is how it makes her treat Percy so terribly, because, like, he has, the audacity to hate Luke because he's a horrible genocidal maniac? Like, sorry, but Luke isn't cool, and Percy kind of already is your love interest to some extent. You have shown some interest in him, and then you have the nerve to get jealous of Rachel Elizabeth Dare, who's just like a normal girl who is nice to him, but God forbid he feel protective over you when you're like fawning over a genocidal maniac. Like, what? Like, it's such a weird double standard. Like, Percy's not allowed to have like other female friends, but Annabeth is allowed to fawn over Luke despite the fact that he's done nothing but be harmful to Annabeth and everyone else that they love. Like, it's totally ridiculous, and it's not very nice as a friend, not even as like a romantic interest. As a friend, Annabeth isn't good to Percy. She's very thoughtless to him. She doesn't take into account how that must feel for her to be like, oh, well, I still really care about him and we can't talk about Kronos now because then we bring up Luke. It's like, boo-hoo, sorry, there are bigger problems than your boyfriend or your ex-boyfriend or the guy that you had a crush on 1,000 years ago who has since changed dramatically.
Yes, and I think it also worsens because we have this prophecy that she withheld the last piece of information, which only adds things to be worse, because if we had known about that, it might have actually changed some context to Rachel being there, and probably that's the reason why she was angry at Rachel for the most part, because she knew this last part before the Luke stuff. And let's get into it, because Percy does the most honorable thing ever and pretty much asks her what was the last part of that prophecy. We're gonna read this whole prophecy.
It's so awkward.
We're gonna read this whole prophecy as we have had it before. So you ready for this, B?
Yeah. All right. Do you want to start?
Yes. You shall delve into the darkness of the endless maze.
Hold on. Where is it? Now I can't find. Hold on. Delve into the darkness of the endless maze. Okay. Yes. The dead, the traitor, and the lost one raise.
And that pretty much, we don't have to probably break this down because they already break it down in the text. Pretty much Ethan and all those people are evil.
Raise the dead. Ethan Nakamura was the traitor. So we couldn't have guessed that because he was a new character. And then they raised the spirit of Pan, which I think actually we guessed Or at least I guess, because it seems pretty obvious, because he's the lost one.
You shall rise or fall by the Ghost King's hand.
Which wasn't Minos, it was Nico.
Yes, because
What a
he's
plot
the Lord
twist.
of the
So
Ghosts
he's actually on
now.
their side. Yeah, so that's actually a positive thing. And the child of Athena's final stand.
And we kept forgetting that Daedalus is technically a son of Athena.
Right. So it actually wasn't Annabeth at all.
Destroy with the hero's final breath.
So that's Daedalus's breath, right?
Yeah,
Hold on a second.
he sacrificed himself for the maze.
Right. So yes, that destroys the labyrinth by him dying.
And B, what is the final part that Annabeth has withheld through the entire book, which I totally forgot until this chapter?
And lose a love that's worse than death.
And what does that possibly mean? Because in the context of this prophecy before they met Luke, it was Percy probably falling in love with Rachel, which is a fate worse than death in Annabeth's eyes.
That's why she was so protective over Percy, is because at first she thought that she was losing Percy, but really she was losing Luke, which, by the way, that's called a double standard.
And we won't talk about we won't have the Luke escapade any longer. I feel like we need to go past Luke.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm just gonna roast Annabeth for having really bad taste in men.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of people that have a bad taste in men.
Let's not call those people out here on the show.
Oh, I have it in an alphabetical list. Number 1, me. Wait a second, this isn't alphabetical. Oh.
It started in reverse alphabetical order.
Oh, I hate that. Because, see, the funny thing is, my first letter is Z, my sister's is A. So we have A to Z. It's terrible. And then we also have B now.
Mm-hmm. Like Jason Mraz, Mr. A to Z. I'm sorry.
So pretty much what ends up happening is they kind of like go their separate ways because the camp is going over. It's, the end of the summer. Everyone's...
Yeah, so Annabeth decides to stay at camp for a little while longer, I think to watch after Chiron because his leg is still broken.
Because of his broken leg, just in case that she has to put him down.
Yeah, I guess they shoot horses, don't they? And also to keep looking at Daedalus's laptop.
Yes, which seems like something, a laptop is kind of a portable thing. Just saying. I'm sure there's gigabytes upon gigabytes worth of schematics and schemas.
Yeah, basically. So I don't know. I mean, it also just seems a little bit like an excuse for her to like not come with him to Manhattan, and then she's gonna go to San Francisco.
So she can keep an eye on... Oh, wait. Oh. Yeah. For some reason, I'm thinking about because she has like binoculars. She's like in a bush, like trying to look for Luke. Instead of bird watching, she's Luke watching.
Yeah, I hope not. She's going to like some school that apparently she's gonna hate, but I don't know. It just seems like her motivations are really weird at this juncture.
Annabeth, I'm sure, going to an all-girl school. Oh, and then my favorite part about this is we get Hera pops up. She's like Glinda, the good witch, except we're switched witch to something else.
More chaotic than that.
She's the good birch tree.
Yeah, so she just kind of pops up and says that she helped them a lot.
Yeah, and she's manipulative and terrible and the worst.
Yeah, so she helped them... Hold on.
She helped them at the ranch.
Helped them through the ranch, so that was like the main thing. What else did she say?
She changed the maze to make sure that they got to see Luke. That was another. And she needed everything to go into place that Luke turns evil for a specific reason, I guess. She wants the big old perfect happy family.
Yeah, to which, I mean, to be fair, Percy does challenge her on this.
And she also sends Percy to Calypso.
Yeah, which, awkward. That's another weird thing that I forgot happened was the whole Calypso thing. Man, he's a ladies' man in this book.
And yet Annabeth is not.
A lot of attention. Yeah, Annabeth isn't that jealous of Calypso, really.
That's because she hasn't met her, and I'm sure...
But, like, mythologically, you'd think that she would know what that implied.
Well, she would have, and also she probably would have swam up to the island to punch Calypso in the face, and then go back to Luke.
That's my man! Like on Jerry Springer.
Yes. Oh, man.
Imagine godly Jerry Springer, and you are the father, and then it's, like, Poseidon, like, screaming.
Oh, no, he just turns into a fish and goes away.
Yeah. He's like, whoop, sorry, gotta go, and he just jumps into a river.
Though she also hates Nico, and it's kind of weird and awful. It's like, oh, please, Hera waved her hand dismissively. The son of Hades said it himself. No one wants him around. He does not belong. Jeezy crazy.
Yeah, wow. Way to be son of Hades racist or whatever she's being. I don't know. There's a lot of like weird prejudice in these books sometimes, and you're just like,
I think Hera in this is a big old birch tree. She's also a witch. She also likes to dig ditches. What I'm trying to say is she's oh yeah, hey, I forgot. We have to keep this family friendly.
Anyway, she's just not very nice and pretty judgmental of Nico just because he's the son of Hades, which like kind of a weird distinction that she and kind of Camp Half-Blood make because they don't have a cabin for children of Hades. It's just kind of a gross, weird prejudice.
I think Annabeth does bring up a good point in how Hera just wants like the atomic family almost. She wants like the Norman Rockwell like family approach of everything has to be perfect in many other ways. For some reason, I get like the 50s housewife aesthetic to her for Hera. Like that's what she just looks like. She has like the beehive and like, all the nice dresses.
Yeah, and Percy calls her out for this too. He says, Hephaestus was right. You only care about your perfect family, not real people. And then she's like kind of mad that he's acting quote unquote ungrateful because she helped them in all these ways in the labyrinth. She says, watch yourself, son of Poseidon. I guided you more than you know in the maze. I was at your side when you faced Geryon. I let your arrow fly straight. I sent you to Calypso's island. I opened the way to the Titan's mountain. Annabeth, my dear, surely you see how I've helped. I would welcome a sacrifice for my efforts.
Yes. Unfortunately, Annabeth sees the exact same thing as Percy and she starts running her mouth because Annabeth is known for running her mouth.
She kind of roasts Hera a little bit.
Yes, and what ends up happening is she is now cursed by Hera. So we're seeing a trend here. Percy's still cursed by Ares, and now Annabeth is cursed by Hera.
By Hera now, because she says, yeah, you're the one who doesn't belong, Queen Hera. So next time, thanks, but no thanks. Hera's sneer was worse than an Ampusa's. Her form began to glow. You will regret this insult, Annabeth. You will regret this very much. I averted my eyes as the goddess turned into her true divine form and disappeared in a blaze of light. The hilltop was peaceful again. Over at the pine tree, Peleus the dragon dozed under the golden fleece as if nothing had happened.
It's funny because she turns into her god form, which pretty much, if you look at it, you turn into a pillar of salt.
Like a horrifying...
Well, you go insane. It's like an elder god. And then, guess what happens? Our good friend Interruptus shows up because the camp's getting ready to leave. Percy's about to go, and he almost says, I'm just going to read it word for word because it ends just right where you think it's going to end, okay? Listen, Annabeth, I thought about Mount St. Helen, Calypso's island, Luke and Rachel Elizabeth there, and now suddenly everything had gotten so complicated. I wanted to tell Annabeth that I really wanted to be so distant from her. Then Argus honked his horn down at the road, and I lost my chance.
Argus!
You have... No. He still's got time. Argus can slow his roll.
Argus's real name is Interruptus.
Well, no, because...
Argus Interruptus.
Argyle Interruptus. He wears an Argyle sweater.
He wears an Argyle sweater.
But you see, it's like, Percy has all the chances in the world, and he keeps blowing it. Like... one honk doesn't mean you can't say I love you. You know, maybe that might fix the problem. I think if Percy Jackson said the L word, you know, not lesbians, but obviously love, it would work.
Like the, what is it? The
Scott Pilgrim. You have to say the L word, Scott. I lesbians you? No. Yeah, so he loses his chance once again as he goes back to the big city.
Yeah, and has a real bummer of a birthday. I mean, not so bad. At least he gets to spend time with his mom, and Tyson's there. He doesn't really talk about it with other people. I mean, his description is, I never advertised the date because it always fell right after camp, so none of my camp friends could usually come. I didn't have that many mortal friends. Besides, getting older didn't seem like anything to celebrate since I'd gotten the big prophecy about me destroying or saving the world when I turned 16. Now I was turning 15. I was running out of time. My mom threw me a small party at our apartment. Paul Blowfist came over, but that was okay because Chiron had manipulated the mist to convince everyone at Good High School that I had nothing to do with the band room explosion. Now Paul and the other witnesses were convinced that Kelly had been a crazy firebomb-throwing cheerleader, while I had simply been an innocent bystander who panicked and ran from the scene.
Percy Jackson should just be homeschooled. You know, there's wonderful online programs.
Yeah, why? I just don't really understand why his mom keeps being like, all right, time to send you off to school, young man. Like, do you not know how this will end?
You know, there are some lovely online schools. I think it would be really beneficiary to everybody if Percy Jackson went to one of those, but no. Though, I like Mr. Blowfist. I think he's a great guy.
No, he's like a pretty chill guy. I mean, he's like a little bit jealous later on in the chapter when Poseidon shows up, but I guess that is kind of like a weird power move that Poseidon does, where he's just like, hey guys, and then is like sort of weirdly posturing towards Mr. Blowfist and stuff. So that it's kind of weird.
But it's not out of his character. That's the funny thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, Poseidon's been known to be a little bit of a maybe tactless kind of guy.
No, but it's funny because even when Percy Jackson is having miserable times at the birthday party, even Paul is pretty much like, is it girl troubles? Yeah, I was 15 once.
He's actually pretty thoughtful as a character because he doesn't just say, oh, is it girl troubles? But he's also like, oh, I sense that something else has happened, like some sort of loss. And it can be difficult being a teenager. Like he's pretty thoughtful and understanding of Percy. He doesn't really understand the extent of why Percy is so stressed, but...
Well, he doesn't need to because he understands, like, human problems, and this, even though it's an ungodly human problem, it's still a human problem. He has all these worries and stuff, and it's funny because I was thinking about... Because he even talks about, like, 15 is a hard age. I remember being 15, and lo and behold, I was thinking about, wait, when did I get my first date? Oh my God, it was 15 years old. Like, yeah, 15 is a magical, terrible number.
No, I was horrible when I was 15. I was really horrible to be around.
Everyone's horrible to be around when you're 15. I was probably horrible. I remember 14 is like when like hormones start to really kick in. 15 is like everything's pain. I just want to die. Help me. No, don't help me.
Yeah, you kind of turned into Nico. That's the Nico year.
Don't touch me. Mom, get away. I just want to watch anime all day.
Yeah. Yeah, the angsty year.
Oh, yeah, as you're reading My Immortal.
Basically, I mean...
That's the My Immortal years. I'm sure she was 15.
Or around there. I was talking to Sarah, and she said that statistically she could have been the person who wrote My Immortal because she did write a Evanescence Harry Potter songfic like around that time before My Immortal even became popular. Like it was basically the same stuff.
So you're telling me Sarah just forgot that she wrote it? It was so bad?
I mean, she may have, is what I'm saying.
Oh my God. For some reason...
In another universe, she's the author of My Immortal.
She just has amnesia. She'll remember it. She'll be bonked in the head one day. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's like Memento. She has to figure out that it was her all along. Just written on her arms and legs is just like, and I put up my middle finger at them. I'm very gothic.
Oh my God. There's like a hidden compartment in like her room. He opens it up and just all of her like her character tree, and this has pictures of MCR and was it Sirens? I forget what was the name of the band. Whatever, it's another emo band. Sleeping with Sirens. There we go. That's the name of the emo band. I just. Was it 30 Seconds to Mars?
Oh, the memories.
Panic at the Disco. No, that's not really an emo band. Panic at the Disco.
They were emo adjacent.
Well, they're more like Yikes in the Yards. They're like low key. They got out of that really quickly.
Like there was some scene involved there. They were It was a weird time for hair and music.
Yes, it was. I was watching like an old timey clip today just about emo scene kids, and I was just getting flashbacks because
it's old timey. That's funny. Yeah, was it on a Nickelodeon?
I'm just imagining you put like the quarters into the Nickelodeon, you have to turn the lever. Oh my God, you'd have like the vaudevillian approach, like MCR to start playing like doo 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 doo. Like for some reason it's like a carnival, like it's on a yes. But. It's funny because I like that you actually see
Isn't it weird to think that like 15-year-olds now are 15 now? Like they're not 15 when we were 15, like in the early 2000s. It's a different time. They're dealing with all the stuff that's happening now, which is probably worse. So shout out to 15-year-olds right now.
Yeah, they're dealing with the Harambe's, the Naruto runners, the floss, the Fortnites, the vapes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God, I'm sorry. Apologies to all of the 15-year-olds suffering out there right now.
My advice is it's only going to go downhill from here, so just enjoy it.
That's not really true. Really, once you're out of high school, it's a lot better.
Yes. Yes, it is. Well, yes. It's funny because going... Statistically, yes. And I like that in this chapter... We actually see an interesting compare and contrast between Paul and Poseidon in a very interesting way, as we see here, where Paul kind of brings Percy to the side and asks him, hey, can I marry your mom? I'm asking your permission first before I asked her, which is a very adult thing to do.
Kind of a cool thing to do. Yeah, good job, Paul. Am I the only one? I mean, well, I don't know. You've read this before, so you can't tell me, but he seems almost too good to be true. What is he up to? Why is he so nice to Percy? I don't know. I'm just like waiting for some sort of betrayal. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but that's how I feel.
Are you waiting for him to be like a double agent?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being really irrational, but there's just something about how like unbelievably respectful and cool he is to Percy that I'm just expecting for the other shoe to drop.
I mean, once again, we haven't seen adult demigods yet. When we've actually seen has been Daedalus, but he's ancient. We haven't seen like an actual proper adult.
It's true.
Maybe they're having a midlife godly crisis.
And he did say that he used to teach ancient history. I don't know. Just a little crack theory that maybe I'm going to be like a few chapters into the next book. I'll be like, wait, I was right.
Oh my god, he is Daedalus again.
Maybe not Daedalus, but like, I don't know, some sort of person who's going to betray him. And maybe not even necessarily like involved in like the magical sort of mythological stuff, but is just like a bad guy somehow.
It turns out to be Ares. He's so petty. I'm going to marry your mom now. That's for beating me on the beach.
Oh god. Yeah, that would be like a weird flex. The definition of a weird flex. Oh, but then he'd be related to Clarice.
Yeah, well, no, he wouldn't be. He would just be
his like her stepbrother.
It'd be funny because
that would be weird.
No, that's pretty much the equivalent of like every person on Xbox Live ever saying an insult. I'm gonna marry your mom. Not like that, but everyone knows what I'm saying. But I like this. And then guess what happens? Poseidon enters stage right.
Yeah, completely unannounced in the truest definition of unannounced, because he doesn't even like have the doorman buzz him up. He just sort of appears at the doorway.
He appears from thin air, and can I just read his description because he is the dadliest dad to ever walk the 7 dads? It was my dad. He was wearing Bermuda shorts and a Hawaiian shirt and Birkenstocks. Like he usually does. Isn't this your stepdad or your mom's boyfriend? Doesn't he wear Birkenstocks?
My mom's boyfriend does wear Birkenstocks. He calls them his click and clackers.
His black beard was neatly trimmed and his sea green eyes twinkled. He wore a battered cap decorated with fishing lures, and it said Neptune's lucky fishing hat. Which is also funny because the Roman equivalent of Poseidon is Neptune.
So there he is, unannounced and kind of obnoxious, just appearing in the doorway.
Okay, I just thought that's something so stupid. Just imagine like Poseidon like walks in, and he's like, oh, I could use a refreshment. He like snaps his fingers, and all of a sudden margaritas start appearing out of the sky.
Yeah, and then he has to like explain to Mr. Blowfist, like, oh yeah, I'm a magician, a Margaritaville magician. This is my friend Jimmy Buffett.
Actually, Jimmy Buffett's behind him. Hey-o! He's gonna play a tune ski for you guys while I talk to Percy.
The boys in the band order boat drinks.
Oh man, actually, can we get Jimmy Buffett to endorse Percy Jackson? Is this something we can actually do in our life?
No, we can't. We can't do that. Do you think we have the power to do that?
That is not demigod thinking. We have to think like demigods. Demigods would do it. Didn't you ever not read The Secret? You have to be positive about your stupid theories.
The laws of attraction. You have to believe that we can convince Jimmy Buffett to say, I love Percy Jackson.
Well, there is that stupid app. What is it? It's like Cameo or
Cameo?
Yeah, Cameo.
Yeah.
If we can get Jimmy Buffett on there, I want you to say these lines.
I don't think he's on Cameo. Wait, hold on. I'm gonna just search and see if Jimmy Buffett's on Cameo. You know, because he might be.
It's like the easiest $500 you could possibly make. I just got to say 3 words. Okay.
He does have a cameo in the movie Hook, which is what keeps coming up. And in Jurassic World, obviously. But I don't think he's on the website Cameo, no.
No, okay.
Oh, well. Disappointment.
Oh, well, we'll figure it out eventually. But Percy Jackson and Poseidon kind of like go into the back room, and Percy Jackson tells him his yarns about So Percy Jackson and Poseidon go into the back room, and pretty much Percy Jackson just tells him the whole story that we just read.
Yeah, basically. He's just like, hey, so here's a Cliff Notes of everything that just happened.
And lo and behold, Poseidon is just, yeah, everything's terrible. Oh, by the way, the old gods are coming back, and also...
He's like, oh yeah, I heard about that, so that's pretty terrible.
Also, the thing about Luke, yeah, he's a jerk. You know, Annabeth should do better.
Yeah, no, he's right.
Yeah, he's right. The one time Poseidon's actually right. But it's funny because he even talks about, like, the thing in Mount St. Helens, like, oh yeah, by the way, you might have accidentally woken up a Titan by mistake.
Yeah, I like how at first Percy, weird selfish teenager that he is, thinks that he's mentioning the kiss that he had instead of, awakening an elder god.
No, Dad, it wasn't like that. I just wanted to kiss Annabeth. There wasn't like it was like the French. We just like smacked their lips together. Oh, you had talk about the time I almost worked up an elder god.
Oh yeah, and then they have like a brief conversation about Antaeus and like why he was so horrible in the name of Poseidon, which I thought was like kind of a cool conversation because then Poseidon says, "Percy, lesser beings do many horrible things in the name of the gods. That does not mean we gods approve. The way our sons and daughters act in our names, well, it usually says more about them than it does us. And you, Percy, are my favorite son," because Antaeus claims that he's his favorite son. By the way, Tyson's in the other room. He's literally in the other room.
And it's funnier because when Poseidon comes in, Tyson's like, "Daddy," and Paul's like, "Oh, what? Huh?"
Oh yeah, that awkward thing. It's like, okay, have you never heard of a half sibling before? Like, come on, dude. Get it together.
Or have you heard of a swingers convention?
Oi.
I actually don't like this that he said that because it's almost like a hollow compliment because I'm sure Poseidon has said that many times to other of his children.
Yeah, his favorite son? What? Tyson is literally right there, my dude. Not cool.
For me, I think it's like almost like a false compliment because let's say 1,000 years from now, what if he says it again? Like obviously he's his favorite living son, but what about his dead children? Like,
because he's not supposed to have any children anyway,
Yeah.
so it's like, oh, he's an outlier.
yeah, and also you have to think about like in ancient Greek history, like he's probably already had favorite sons. So what about like the original Perseus? What about the other ones? Yeah, they go to the way of the dodo, I suppose. So Percy Jackson is his favorite son.
Yeah, it's kind of a messed up thing to say. I can't believe he actually says something so straightforward. Like, instead of all my sons are my favorite sons or something like that.
If we're looking at the structure of like the hero's journey and like the monomyth, the acceptance of a father to a son, like the idea of a father and son always will have a complicated relationship, a mother and a daughter, kinda, but when you look at mythology, it's always the father and the son. And you have that big moment where the son becomes a man is when you get the father's acceptance. This is how always been since, actually, a good example of this, they actually bring it up with Sparta. Like, pretty much the Spartans were the exact same thing, where like they would throw their kids out into the wilderness, and if they survived, they're a man, and that's where you get your father's approval. There's a lot of things like this in the monomyth. There's a lot of things in Greek culture about this, about you need to get the acceptance of your father before you can truly become a man. I guess not necessarily, but more of an adult. You also have that weird compliment now where it's like, oh, you're my favorite son, so now Percy Jackson's on top of cloud 9.
He says that he's his favorite son, which is a weird, superficial thing to say. And then Percy just totally eats it up because he's so starved for attention from his dad that he... hold on, I want to find what he says exactly. He smiled, and at that moment, being in the kitchen with him was the best birthday present I ever got. Seriously? He's not a cool guy. How about you're ignoring your mom right now who actually raised you?
Yes, but also you have to think of it this way. Percy Jackson has always been starved for attention. Like, no matter like which way you put it, even with his mom, when good old-fashioned Gabe Ugliano was there, he didn't get much attention, didn't get much love and appreciation.
No, I get that, but like he has always had his mom who's a really good parent, and it's like such a funny contrast because like the best gift I ever got was my dad, who's a deadbeat, appearing for 5 seconds and saying some superficial garbage to me. Anyway, my mom's calling me in for the birthday cake that she made for me and my half-brother who my dad just ignored. Like... You know what I mean?
I think it's a little different for Tyson because he probably sees his dad every other day because he's at the forges.
No, I get that. I'm just saying, like, he says it's his favorite son. Tyson is also his son.
Well, yes,
just
but
saying.
Even here's the hard part is that even with like family members, like I've gone, I'm not going to name any names, but I've known like parents, they have their favorite children. I've heard people say it straight up, and it's shocking.
No, my grandma has said this before about my aunts, and it's like, dude, what? Why would you say that? Why would you be like, well, that's my favorite daughter? Like, that's batty. Like, I can't imagine making that distinction about like, well, I birthed all of you and I care about you all so much.
Except for this
but
one.
This one's my favorite. You, I don't really care for you. Like, that's such a weird distinction to make.
Well, back in the old days when you had like 16 kids and half of them would die of like the consumption or the polio, Yeah, I think that's okay to pick your favorite kid. I hope he doesn't die. He's got the most potential. He's got those small kid hands.
Yeah, I like this kid. He's the best at pulling, the mule through the field.
Yes.
He's probably not going to die.
Oh, no, he's dead now. Now you're my new favorite son. You have those nice small hands, supple for going into the factory, getting stuck in the gears.
In the spindles.
Oh, man.
And that is the story of human progress.
Did I ever mention we're terrible? We never said we were good people.
No, we're not.
No.
We're not good. At least we're not as bad as Poseidon.
No, and, he is technically like a deadbeat dad. I always think of Talladega Nights, the ballad of Ricky Bobby. If you ain't first, you're last. In that sense of like, you have a deadbeat dad and all you want to do is just, you're hungry to accept them or you're hungry just to get approval from them. And again, goes back to the monomyth. You have it with Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. Let me see you with my own eyes. And it's like, I could help you, Father. We could just get on the ship. No, I'm going to die. I just got a face full of lightning. I just want to see you as you are. You are now pretty much a Jedi in my eyes.
It's kind of interesting because we spent the first half of this episode kind of criticizing Annabeth and how she hyperfixates on Luke and how she wants attention from this guy who really isn't good for her. Obviously, Poseidon isn't a one-to-one example, but it's kind of interesting how Percy mirrors some of this like unhealthy behavior where instead of say, I don't know, focusing on the unconditional and continuous love that his mom has expressed towards him, or Tyson, who's been a good brother to him, who's always there for him, instead, he's so like caught up in the attention and the approval of his dad when really his dad hasn't been there for him for most of his life. So it's just kind of like, I think the harder it is to achieve, the more like hard won it is, I guess. He's like, oh, well, I feel more validated by this person finally being nice to me a little bit, which is like kind of messed up.
So I get what you're saying, but I feel like this comes down to something that's probably similar. I don't have this experience, but it's like when you have divorced parents. And how sometimes you either have the parent that you're always going to be with, but then you get really excited when you see like your mom or your dad for the first time, or you have like visitation rights. It's probably something very similar to that, where like they exist, they're alive, but at least you get to spend as very little time with them as possible. So you try to make the most of it, even if it like you have the wool over your eyes or the rose tinted glasses. Yes, it's not a good relationship, but at least Poseidon's a little more, he understands, like even in the first book, he even says, I'm so sorry, I wish I didn't birth you because I didn't want to give you into this world.
No, I get that. I understand it's a very fraught, complicated thing. And he's allowed to like be excited to see his dad. But I think just the phrasing of that's the best birthday gift he could ever receive when literally a party is being thrown by his other parent who is a better parent to him, that felt a little frustrating to me.
Yes, but also you have to think of it in the way of like he's a kid. He doesn't understand what his mom is actually doing for him. All he cares about is the moment right now. He's not going to reflect about it.
Right. Like, I get that. It's just, I don't know. Percy's just...
I'm sure, like...
He's a little short-sighted. I think in the way that a lot of kids are in some ways, where they're, like, not really appreciative of, like, maybe when parents are always, like, good for them. It's, like, always, getting them to school on time, doing, like, the hard work of being a parent. That's not the kind of stuff that gets appreciated. Instead, it's, like, the sort of superficial thing of Poseidon just showing up.
Wow, Dad got me a Super Nintendo.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, he shows up last minute and is like, oh, he's such a cool guy. And then, like, the hard work of actually, disciplining Percy is done by Sally. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, it's all undone when Poseidon comes. Though, is it a wrong thing? Like, I guess, Poseidon, I guess this is easy to say. He's not a good parent, but the problem, though, is it's more complicated for a god than it is for a mortal.
Obviously. I mean, it's not a one-to-one thing compared to humans, but I guess it's just like, it's not like Percy doesn't have any parental figure. I would understand if he was like, the best gift ever is to be with my dad. It's like, how about the best gift ever is to be with your mom, who like made you not one, but 3 cakes, because she made 1 cake for you and then 2 for your giant half-sibling who isn't even related to her.
Also, I think if it was like the best gift I ever got was not being with my dad, but being with my family, even if it isn't, it's a surrogate family.
Right,
he has probably a new stepdad. He has a half-brother, and he has his mom, and even Poseidon. Though I think it would have been more interesting if Sally Jackson opened the door and she just slapped Poseidon.
She's like, what the heck? I do like how she just calls and is like, hey, Percy, the candles are melting. He's like, all right, I gotta go. It's like, yeah, dude, remember the cake that your mom made?
There's a lot more things to it, I feel like, and I'm sure we're going to get some reconciliation in the last book. Maybe, who knows? But it's one of those where it's hard.
I mean, I think it's like a consistent characterization thing because he is a teenager. So I guess sometimes when you're that age, you can be short-sighted about like who you're appreciating and be like, oh, well, I like this kind of attention, even though that, you know, I always get this attention from my mom, but he kind of takes it for granted or whatever. Like that's consistent with the way a kind of tactless teen boy would act. I understand that that is like in character for him. It's just kind of annoying. I'm roasting the characters a lot, but I just think because it's true, sometimes they act real selfish.
You have a total right to roast the characters now, especially we're 4 books in. You understand who they are now, so you can understand when something doesn't seem right.
I mean, it seems right. Like it's in character for Percy, but it still is annoying, I guess. Because, like, if I was Sally, I'd be like, seriously? But she's, like, even she's caught up with Poseidon, which
Here's
is,
the
like...
problem, though. You say that you if you were Sally, but you're not Sally. You don't have the same thoughts and feelings and experiences as Sally.
Right. That's, like, the funny thing about Sally is he shows up, and then she's, like, tripping over herself, being like, oh, Poseidon is, like, she's just as impressed as she was the day that she met him. And it's like, are you forgetting who this man is?
Well, yes, but then there's the thing about love, and like you can be blinded by love no matter what. I guess that goes back to the whole...
Do you think maybe that's kind of the theme of this chapter in some ways?
Oh, maybe that you can be blinded by love. I'm just imagining like Aphrodite's like in the windowsill just snickering to herself.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, haha, love makes people act foolish.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's the blindsidedness, and also we're looking at it as functional adults, not as kids reading this book for the first time. Like, oh, it's probably to a person reading it for the first time, this is a very tender, sweet moment. To us as cynical adults, everything's terrible. What?
But even, I mean, Sally is an adult, so she kind of doesn't have an excuse. It's like...
Yeah, but she's also taken aback. Like
he is a god, though, because he has a certain sort of magnetism in his personality, because he's truly, literally not a human being. So I get that maybe he's more impressive to people than an actual human.
It's also funny because then we have that comedy with him and Blowfish about, you said Blowfish? I love those creatures.
Yeah. That was pretty funny, actually.
Or my other favorite one, I can already imagine it in my head, even in like in a live action form, is when he's talking about, oh yes, if this was back in Sparta, he'd be a man by now. Hey, I used to teach ancient history. And then slowly you just hear Poseidon go, I was ancient history.
I like the doublespeak of that. That was funny because he means I was ancient history, obviously, because he's Poseidon. But what he actually is ancient history in Sally's life, because he's long gone out of their lives.
And it's great. I think there's a lot of great moments in this. Even if we are roasting the characters, we have the right to roast them. But there is something nice about Percy Jackson finally being happy. Yes, everything's not right. Though, once again, this goes back to, I guess this is romance stuff. He didn't invite Rachel. She wasn't invited to the birthday party.
Yeah, that awkwardness of not inviting Rachel.
Even though he has her phone number memorized, and also she's going to be at the same school as him next year.
My mom asked me if there was anyone else I wanted to have over tonight, and I thought about Rachel, but I didn't call. I don't know why. The idea made me almost as nervous as a door into the labyrinth. So, I don't know. Nervous teen boy stuff.
It's almost as if there's a love triangle.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I kind of like Rachel more than Annabeth. I feel like I'm going to be skewered by our listeners for saying that.
B, don't say that, because then the shippers are going to come. Oh no, they're already ascending.
I really like Rachel. I do. I think she's more level-headed. I think so far she's been a lot more respectful as a friend to Percy.
I'm not a betting man, but Annabeth or Rachel? Annabeth, who has all these problems, or Rachel, who has a lot of money?
Yeah. Oh, how do I decide?
How do I decide?
Between this girl who's kind of mean to me and really likes this abusive guy she used to date, or Rachel, who's just like really nice and has so much money.
Yes. Oh, man.
And isn't tied up with a bunch of like magical half-blood stuff. I don't know. There's something to be said for mythological people ending up with mortals. That's what Percy's parents did. You know what I mean? Like it's maybe that it's a little bit
drama.
easier. Exactly. If you're not both half-bloods.
No. And this chapter kind of starts to end where Percy Jackson is like going through his pants and finds the little lilac.
Oh, yeah.
Or the little piece of flower, and he remembers what Calypso asked him to do.
Right, moonlace. A tiny sprig shriveled up after 2 months, but I could still smell the faint scent of the enchanted garden. It made me sad. I remember Calypso's last request of me. Plant a garden in Manhattan for me, will you? I opened the window and stepped onto the fire escape. My mom kept a planter box out there. In the spring, she usually filled it with flowers, but now it was all dirt, waiting for something new. It was a clear night. The moon was full over 82nd Street. I planted the dried sprig of moonlace carefully in the dirt and sprinkled a little nectar on it from my camp canteen. Nothing happened at first. Then, as I watched, a tiny silver plant sprang out of the soil, a baby moonlace, growing in the warm summer night.
It's adorable. I love it.
Precious.
I'm just imagining for some reason it starts poking out. It's like Audrey, too. From Little
Feed
Shop
me.
of Horrors.
Feed me, Percy. The blood of your enemies. I demand the blood of Luke.
Yes, actually, I'm fine with that. Feed me, Percy. Feed me. I like this. I think this is a great end of the book, except for bum bum bum. Nico's just creepily there.
Yeah, our friendly neighborhood emo skulking around on the top of a roof.
B, you know how there's always the town drunk? Well, there's now the town emo.
Yeah, basically. So he appears kind of out of nowhere, and he has grown an inch taller over the last couple months. How did that I don't know. The man is growing at a rapid rate.
He's gonna be like 8'5". Hey guys, I'm
Yeah,
Nico.
I love the description of him. Speaking of My Immortal, the description is extremely My Immortal. His hair was a shaggy black mess. He wore a black t-shirt, black jeans, and a new silver ring shaped like a skull. His Stygian, I don't know how to pronounce it actually. Stygian iron sword hung at his side. I've done some exploring, he said. Thought you'd like to know. Daedalus got his punishment.
Let's put the brakes on. I like that even though Daedalus is a terrible man, still gets a good reward, and that's fine because he deserves it because he sacrificed himself.
Yeah, maybe not a good reward, but as far as a punishment goes, not that much of a punishment. It's just sort of a civil service.
What I mean by good reward, I'm meaning like he's got a good punishment compared to the other punishments you could possibly get.
Oh my god, it could have been so much worse. Yeah, it says Minos wanted to boil him in cheese fondue for eternity, but my father had other ideas.
What type of weirdo is Minos?
Minos is messed up. Daedalus will be building overpasses and exit ramps in Asphodel for all time. It'll help ease the traffic congestion. Truthfully, I think the old guy is pretty happy with that. He's still building, still creating, and he gets to see his son and Perdix on the weekends. Not a bad outcome, honestly.
I like that he's able to like see both of his sons. I think that's also a really good thing because he gets a nice arc.
Well, Perdix is his nephew?
Yes, the one that he murdered.
The one that he murdered, yeah. So whatever, his relatives that he has some awkward stuff with them. But anyway, long time no see.
Hey, Perdix, you want to go to like the mall or something? You killed me. Oh,
Do you want to go climb a very tall tower and look out the window?
When we're at the mall, I'll get you an orange Julius. Would you like that? You murdered me, but yes.
They don't even make orange Julius anymore.
Oh my god. B, you realize that I'm a person out of time?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Orange Julius hasn't been around since at least the 90s.
Well, Daedalus is an old guy, and for some reason I've been watching too many movies set in the mall, so I just see Orange Julius.
Yeah, because everyone knows in ancient Greece they had Orange Julius.
Oh no, that's more of an ancient Roman thing. You know, the ancient Julius Caesar. That's where it's named after, the Orange Julius.
Okay, the podcast is over now. That's it. We've finished it. We're done. There's nothing left to say.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you
is a
and
great
good night.
honor.
No, actually, we're almost done with this book, though. At long last, we are almost done.
Well, no, because then we have the whole fade to black. It's like, I know how to defeat Luke.
Yeah.
Maybe you should come inside. Ooh, is that cake?
Yeah, that's basically the conversation. Is Nico shows up, he points to his spooky skull ring and says, "But that's not the real reason I've come. I found out some things. I want to make you an offer." "What?" "The way to beat Luke," he said. "If I'm right, it's the only way you'll stand a chance." I took a deep breath. Okay, I'm listening. Nico glanced inside my room, his eyebrows furrowed. Is that blue birthday cake?" He sounded hungry, maybe a little wistful. I wondered if the poor kid had ever had a birthday party, or if he'd ever even been invited to one. Come inside for some cake and ice cream, I said. It sounds like we've got a lot to talk about. And that's the last friggin' sentence of the book, you guys.
My first thought was like, wait, he's never had birthday cake before. Like, oh, wait, he's from the 1930s. Birthday cakes were Hoover cakes. They were made out of like moldy cheese and sadness.
Here's a Hoover cake. It's made out of newspaper I found on the ground mixed with castor oil.
Okay, I'm sure there has to be. I want to know. Someone please send us what is a 1930s birthday cake.
Oh, I bet it's real messed up.
Have you ever watched the YouTube channel with the old lady? She passed away, but she did like
Yes.
Depression era cooking with Fran. I love it.
Hold on. 1930s birthday cake. I should have this for my birthday.
Oh, sadness? Yes.
Yeah.
B, it's filled with ticker tape. The ones on that day.
1930s orange cake. That doesn't sound so bad. You could call it Orange Julius.
B goes right well with the Orange Julius. Well, I'm sure like in the Great Depression, you didn't skimp on cake. That was your one joy in life. You just had to get a bunch of scrap for the war efforts. And then you get your birthday cake.
The scrap metal is in the cake.
Crunch, crunch, crunch. And then
it adds iron.
It adds iron, B, but also, guess what my birthday present is? What is it? We got your son war bonds. Whee! So buy war bonds today, please.
Oof, some of these cakes look not good.
They like probably will be depressed for some weird reason. But B, what did you think of the ending of this book?
It's kind of a weird tone. I don't know. It's like mid-conversation. It doesn't quite escalate the way that I think we're used to these final chapters escalating. It's just sort of like, oh, well, I figured something out about Luke. But it's still in like a very subdued tone. There isn't any kind of like immediate threat or anything, any sort of major plot twist other than, oh, I guess he figured out something about defeating Luke, but we won't know about it until the next book.
Yes, and what do you think is going to happen in the next book? And I'm going to well, you already know the name of it, but it's called The Last Olympian.
Ooh, who's the last Olympian? Is Percy the last Olympian? I don't know.
Well, what do you think the plan is? What do you think? How are they going to defeat Luke?
I don't know. He tapped his ring. I don't know what that means. Or if that was just like a weird tick on the part of Nico. I don't know.
Okay, but I will say this. It's probably going to be a Greek mythology method for defeating Luke. How can Nico help Percy in the underworld? You probably won't know this, but you might.
I don't know. Steal his soul or something like that? Some sort of weird bartering of soul. I don't know. I don't know enough about Greek mythology to say.
Well, B, I'm just going to say this, is that there's a term for it.
Okay. Well, that helps me not at all.
Well, Kronos is now Luke, and Luke is now Kronos. They're all powerful. There's no way for them to be indestructible. I don't see any flaws in any of that, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know enough about Greek mythology to make too many guesses about the mechanics of what they're going to do.
I will give you one more hint.
Okay.
It's a little movie from 2004 called Troy.
So they're going to sneak
and kill Brad Pitt, yes.
Yeah. They're going to... Okay. They're going to go inside a giant horse.
Yes.
I haven't seen Troy.
Oh, man, we got to watch Troy. Troy's actually good movie. I like Troy. But we'll find out, won't we, be? In the next thrilling episode of Radio Camp Heflin. By that, I mean in like 3 weeks...
I was thinking of a Trojan horse. I don't know why I was thinking of Troy. Anyway, listen, I don't know.
Well, that's all I'm going to say. Not going to say any more. You can chew on those words.
What happens in Troy? I don't remember what happens in Troy. See, this is when it really becomes apparent that the shtick of our podcast is that I know nothing. Because sometimes I make pretty good guesses. Other times I'm a complete moron. So this is one of those times.
Well, I will say this then. Kill the head and the body dies.
So they cut off his head?
No, not necessarily. That's all I'm going to say, because there's nothing else I can say, because then I'll start spoiling things.
All right, I don't know. I don't want to make too many guesses.
Oh my god, Luke is Percy's dad. Oh, I spoiled something.
That make no sense, but anyway, should I read the name of the next chapter?
Yes, B, what is the name of the next chapter?
Chapter 1 of The Last Olympian is I Go Cruising with Explosives. Wonderful.
What is that supposed to mean?
Love it. Don't know. Don't even know even a little bit. Can't begin to guess. I guess it doesn't leave off in media res with like, him talking to Nico. So we're going to have to find out that conversation later on down the road, but it doesn't look like they left off like you immediately pick up during their conversation. I'm not entirely sure.
At least we know that Percy Jackson's going to be well armed.
Something bad is going to happen. I mean, a pattern of behavior has been established by Percy, and that's every single school he goes to, he explodes or something bad happens. So it's not really out of the realm of possibility that he accidentally leads to some sort of explosion
Brings a bomb
happening.
to school?
Maybe it's not school, but I don't know, because it says cruising, so like they might be on a boat or something. I don't know why they'd be on a boat.
I mean, there's no reason why there's a boat in the series. I mean,
I don't know the context, really. Obviously, he's the Lord of the Broshan, so I don't know.
we'll figure it out. Maybe next time we'll figure it out. Who knows? All we know is that he's got explosions, so by the end of it, it's like Chekhov's bomb. It has to go off.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
For some reason, I'm thinking about, like, he has explosions and he has, like, those gigantic novelty bombs. Or, like, he has, like, the pies in SpongeBob. Oh, these aren't pies. These are bombs. They were made in a bomb factory.
No, that's a pie. Anyway.
Well, I'm excited, B.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen next. I'd really want to hear what Nico had to say. It seems like they kind of skip over that, but we'll figure it out.
I just want to tell you that My Chemical Romance will never break up. It's the best band in the whole world.
Wait, are they playing a reunion show sometime soon? Or no?
I don't know. Don't question it.
Anyway.
Well, I know the lead singer of My Chemical Romance wrote a comic book that's now a Netflix series.
Gerard Way, yeah, he made Umbrella Academy a while ago, actually.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
He's also going to LA Comic Con, so that's even weirder.
He also kind of let himself go. Have you seen him recently? He doesn't look great.
Well, I mean, he's got a lot of money. So we did get one iTunes review, and this is all the way from the UK. It rocks. 5 stars. Hey guys, absolutely love your podcast and listen to it every day at work. Can't wait to hear more from you. If you want more background info, there's the Camp Half-Blood Diaries text, which we're going to be reading next week, which gives some background and short stories from Camp Half-Blood. There's also one of the Kane Chronicles and Magnus Chase 2, for when you guys get to those. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on the Canes. Anyways, I love your show. I can't wait to get to the Canes too, but we'll figure that part out once we get there.
Yeah, I don't know what order we're reading, because I don't know anything.
I'd like to go by publication date, but that's just me.
Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen, but we'll see.
Well, I'm sure if we don't do Heroes of Olympus, people are going to have riots in the streets.
Oh, yeah.
Though,
yeah.
The King
Did you
Chronicles
see that
isn't
meme?
easy. Yes, yeah, I did see that meme.
It's very good.
Though I'm afraid of riots in the streets because that's when the looting happens, and I hate looting.
Yeah, and then they'll loot all your Percy Jackson books. You'll have to start from scratch.
That's fine. I have them digitally. It's not like I'm going to be losing any of them.
That's true. I also have them digitally.
So B, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at B. Kelly Gorman, and you can find me on Tumblr at twinpoetry.tumblr.com.
If you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Suda41, that's SUDA41. If you want to follow our show on Twitter, that's at halfblood_radio. Next week, we're going to be changing things up. We're going to be reading the Demigod Files, which is a little complimentary book that goes along with everything. You're supposed to read it, I guess, in between 4 and 5. I've only read it once in my life, and I can barely remember a thing about it, so this is going to be a fresh perspective. And we have a meetup coming up very, very soon. We're going to be seeing the Lightning Thief musical. B, where are we going to be, and where can they meet us?
So, yeah, we're having a meetup on October 18th. That's a Friday at the William Tecumseh Sherman Monument in New York City. So that's right, basically, at one of the edges of Central Park. And it's a big statue. You can't miss it. The meetup starts.
I think I missed it, B.
Yeah. Hopefully you'll be able to see it or us, and we'll be wearing orange shirts, so you'll kind of be able to pick us out. It starts at 3:30 p.m. But you can show up anytime you want. Anytime between that and 5 p.m. we're going to be hanging out, so you don't have to, get there right as it starts. Just kind of pop in, say hello, maybe get a pin, maybe take a cool selfie with us in front of this vaguely Greek-inspired statue. We're going to the Lightning Thief musical that very day, so we gotta leave eventually. But if you're also going to the musical that day, that would be cool. We could all head that way together. But also, if you don't have tickets, you don't need one to come to the meetup. You can just show up. We'll say hello. We're not requiring tickets.
Except you're going to have tickets to my gun show as I put up my hands and see my muscles. I don't know where you're going to get those that. Use paper bag, please. If you're going to see my gun show.
Yeah. And, try to find the Facebook group and RSVP so we kind of have an idea of who is coming, how many people are coming. That would be cool. Or just tweet at us and I'll send you the link if you can't find it. I'm really excited.
I'm super excited for this meetup. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have a lot of fun in New York. We're going to have a lot of episodes to record. A lot of episodes. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have t-shirts available at TeePublic, so just go to TeePublic and type in Radio Camp Half-Blood. I would really appreciate if you bought a shirt and take a picture of it. That'd also be rad. Come to the meetup with the shirt on so we both freak out and have that weird Will Smith pose of someone in a t-shirt looking at it. Thank you guys for listening to another amazing episode of Radio Camp Half-Blood. I'm Zach.
I'm B.
And let's keep staying mortal. See ya!
Bye, guys.